Sikkim 365 and Baylor Plus have teamed up to bring Baylor fans the ultimate content bundle. You can sign up now for $17.99 a month, a $5 monthly savings, and get instant access to all premium content on both websites. For more information, visit either sikkim365.com or baylorplus.com today. What's up, Baylor family? Welcome into Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. Cole Barber here with Grayson Grunhafer. It's Wednesday, August 28th, and football season for Baylor begins this weekend, along with the 15 teams who are now part of the new Big 12. Each Wednesday this fall in Inside Baylor Sports, Grayson and I will pick the winners of a lot of games, not always all of them, but a lot of the games that include Big 12 teams. Our plan is to keep track of all these picks for the entire season and see between the two of us who does the best. I don't have a lot of confidence in myself, but we'll see how it goes. After that, at the end of each one of these episodes, we'll go into a mailbag session where we answer the questions you submit to us about Baylor Athletics. You can send any questions through the Sikkim 365 premium forums or on social media. We'll make sure to collect those from you every single week leading up to this episode. So, all right, Grayson, there's college football's here. The Big 12 has a lot of games this week, and we kind of narrowed it down. And the first games are tomorrow night, Thursday evening. And the big one, I would say, and obviously this is the one we're going to pick, it's North Dakota State at Colorado. It's a 7 p.m. Central Time kick, and it's going to be aired on ESPN. I think it's kind of a polarizing first game of the season for Deion Sanders in Colorado. They've done a lot of talking. I think it's great for the Big 12, the publicity that he brings, but it also puts a target on their back.
Right, and Deion Sanders actually mentioned this game specifically at Big 12 Media Days. Just kind of, he got asked a lot of questions about it, and you know, Deion was just very upfront. He said they're good. Like, they're a good football team, and I mean, North Dakota State's been a powerhouse for a long time. Obviously, you know, they've had a lot of really good coaches that have made their way up the ranks after performing really well there. So it's a good program, and it's going to be a really unique and tough challenge. It's going to test their physicality early in the season, but Colorado's got too much talent. I'm going to take Colorado to win this game, and so people kind of get an idea of how close people actually think this game could be. Colorado's only a 10-point favorite, and the over-under is 60.5. So they expect it to be a rather high-scoring game, and then obviously they expect it to lean in Colorado's favor, but clearly a lot closer than I would say most of these FCS games. Yeah,
this one will be, to me, very interesting because Colorado has so many transfers again. And you play these early season games. How does everybody mesh? I mean, it's kind of the new reality for college football teams, right? There's just so many transfers that are coming in, and that for a team like North Dakota State that's built a little bit different, even with the transfer portal, is a program that's just built on years. Like, it's not this upstart that's going to recruit from the portal. It's just built on a history of being a solid program. So it's kind of two different teams in that regard. And I think that's why probably this particular game, is as close of a line as it is for an FCS team versus a Colorado team that has quite a bit of talent all over the offensive line now, that they brought in on the transfer portal, and we know about their skill position. So I'm with you. I'm going with Colorado, but man, I would not be surprised at all if this game is close into the second half. I think Colorado just has too much firepower.
If you're picking it against the spread, would you take North Dakota State with the 10 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it, I think in the combination of the over and under being 60, I actually feel like that's pretty low. Like, I think that North Dakota State will score on Colorado, especially early. I know that Colorado State brought in a lot of guys in the portal. Sorry, Colorado, not Colorado State. Brought in a lot of guys in the portal on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you look at the edge rushers that they brought in. They're going to be talented, but are they able to gel for game one? So I think if you look at the over and under plus the spread, man, that spread seems pretty intriguing. I mean, you're looking at probably a 35-25 type score. I think that's very realistic, especially if North Dakota State gets out to a pretty good start, and then maybe slows it down towards the end of the game where Colorado adjusts and their guys settle in a little bit. So I would say at 10 points, if you gave me 10, I would take North Dakota State to cover it.
Okay. I wouldn't. I would take Colorado minus the 10 points. I think, yeah, you mentioned the implied total 35-25. I think Colorado is definitely scoring 40 in this game. And I think that's just kind of where I'm at with that. I think skill position wise, and the fact that I believe they're going to try to make a statement week one with all the fans and everything like that, and Shador. And so that's kind of my read on it. Either way, we're both taking Colorado. So we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's going to be an interesting first game for the Big 12, or first primetime game for the Big 12 this year, being on a Thursday night. So that moves us to Friday, another non-typical Saturday game that's between TCU and Stanford. TCU will travel to Stanford, 9:30 p.m. Central Time kick. So if you want to stay up late Friday night before all the games start on Saturday, you have the opportunity to. It'll be aired on ESPN. And, TCU, similar to Colorado, they have a ton of transfers over the last 2 years. They have more guys that came in this year that they're going to rely on, really on their offensive line. Their starting left tackle's a new transfer. They just have a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball. Sonny Dykes has built up the skill position room. After last year, obviously kind of a setback year for them after playing in the national championship game. This game, I know Stanford's just been kind of down and out, but something would scare me about playing this game at 9:30 time. Like we talk about the body clock, right? Like the 9:30 time for TCU going out there to play this game, the first game on a Friday night. Like something's kind of weird about this game. But what are your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think there is a weird dynamic here. I think Stanford is going to be better than they were a year ago. I'm not sure how much that'll change their overall record, but I do think as a team, they're going to play a lot better. They have some intriguing guys. I mean, their receiver, Ayamanor, that guy, that's an NFL guy. And so they're going to take shots to him a lot. He's the guy who put up over 200 yards on Colorado last year in that crazy game. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think I took TCU when I was picking this game earlier in the offseason to win it 31-20. And they're a 9.5-point favorite. So that sounds about right. So I guess I would take TCU minus the 9.5, but I think TCU wins this game by double digits, somewhere in that range, 2 scores. I just think they're the better team. I think TCU's defense is probably going to give Stanford some problems in this one.
Yeah, I'm interested to see with Avery Helm, TCU starting cornerback, who's been banged up. And you mentioned the Stanford receiver that had such a big season last year that could create problems. And with what we know about Stanford from last year, unless they just do a complete 180, I don't think that – well, I should take that back. They did score a lot of points on Colorado. I don't really remember the rest of their season. So if TCU's not any better than they were defensively last year, maybe it's a higher scoring game. TCU scores late to put them up double digits. I'm picking TCU as well. I think it will be a solid win for the Big 12. And I don't know with TCU with Sonny Dykes, man. Like I'm still cautious of saying, hey, he's ready to go again, because Sonny Dykes' career has been, there's usually this one great season and every school that he's been, with the exception of TCU where he was more consistent. So I want to see this team in action. I think this will be a win for them though early in the season.
And the Big 12 needs wins like this against other power conferences. You got to win these type of games, and TCU is the favorite here. They need to figure out a way to win that game. It's pretty important, I think, for the Big 12.
Yeah, so it's another game that would be massive for the Big 12s on Saturday morning. Be the first the true matchup. I guess ESPN Game Day is going to be there in Morgantown for this one, but Penn State, number 8 preseason, travels to Morgantown to face West Virginia, 11 a.m. The game will be on Fox. Do I have that right? Is that the college football game day matchup? But it's a Fox game?
Big noon. It's big noon.
Big noon. Sorry, guys. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a big matchup, and it's going to be this game. And West Virginia, who I'm going to ride this until they're not in contention. I've picked West Virginia to win the Big 12. Like that's my pick to win the Big 12 this year with everything they have. I think Neil Brown's a good coach. Garrett Green, if you just look at his numbers, but I think this game will really either give me confidence or further confidence or pull me back a little bit. But before I give my pick, what's your thoughts on this one?
So first of all, it's absolutely ridiculous that West Virginia had to go to Penn State last year for a night game, and then they didn't allow West Virginia to have a night game for this one. Like, come on. Come on, that's just not right. So this game's being played at 11 a.m. I think that's an advantage for Penn State. I think Penn State in general is the better team. I actually think Penn State's going to make the college football playoff this year. I think they're going to be a 10-2 type team. They're going to be really good. And last year, we watched this game, and I know the final score ended up being Penn State rather big. But I think in general, it showed us a lot about West Virginia because the game was close for three quarters. Ultimately, I think this one will be close, but I would take Penn State here probably by just a touchdown. They're an 8-point favorite. The over-under is 51.5. But I think Penn State will win by a score, probably 7 points.
Man, like we could talk about 11 a.m., but West Virginia fans are going to be getting ready for this one for 48 hours in advance. So I think that there's still going to be some craziness in this one. And as Baylor fans know, West Virginia is a crazy difficult place to play. And this is a prior to the Big 12 and, the Big East, like this is a pretty regional rivalry. I think there's going to be a lot of hatred in this one. And because of that, and I think that Garrett Green and Neil Brown are going to come in this game pretty fired up. I think that West Virginia pulls this one out and kind of solidifies themselves. And I don't know if I'm with you. I don't think they're the better team. Penn State's obviously ultra talented, but I think it's just one of those, hey, it's first game of the season. I think West Virginia has been looking at this game and understanding that what's coming up, where Penn State, not that they're not looking at it, but they don't have a top 25 rank or a top 10 rank beside West Virginia's name. And I think the natural path to these games for a team like Penn State, even though it's on the road, it is a big game, but it's the first game of the season, especially when you start talking about a 12-team playoff. It doesn't have nearly as much emphasis as it used to.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So you're taking West Virginia here.
I'm going West Virginia straight up. I don't even know what the line is, but I'm going West Virginia. But I got to, man. Like I picked them to win the Big 12, and hey, here we go.
That would be huge. It'd be huge for the Big 12 to get a win like that in the non-conference.
Yeah. So that kicks off the Saturday slate of the games we're picking for Big 12 games. The next one up, which is, super interesting to me because you wanted to pick this one, and I didn't even realize it was this close, potentially this close of a game, is South Dakota State at Oklahoma State, who is number 17 preseason. 1 p.m. Central Time is going to be on ESPN Plus. So if you have that subscription, great, you're locked in, go watch it. But man, Oklahoma State, like super high floor team. Like I think everything they have coming back, but after you saw what they did in the pre-conference last year, maybe this game should scare you a little bit more if you're an Oklahoma State fan.
Losing to South Alabama 33-7 at home is pretty. I think everyone pretty much thought their season was about to be over. Gundy, it was about to be just this crazy year where they win, 3 or 4 games. Probably have a season similar to Baylor is what many people were probably anticipating. And it did not turn out like that because they finally started giving the ball to Ollie Gordon, changed some things up. I think they're going to win this game, but I just find it so fascinating when these FCS teams are in these matchups and it's only a 10-point spread. That is just something really unique. And so South Dakota State, a powerhouse, they're basically becoming a little bit of a dynasty at the FCS level. So they're going to come in there and they're going to play this game really tough, play really hard. Ultimately, though, I think Oklahoma State has too much. They're going to feed Ollie Gordon, and ultimately, I think they're going to win this game probably by like 17 points. So I think they'll cover. But I do think this game will be pretty competitive, at least through 3 quarters.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see with South Dakota State is just depending on Ollie Gordon. There's been rumors of him being dinged up in fall camp, and I'm not expecting him to sit or anything like that, but I think they're going to do what they can to eliminate him. But that's behind an Oklahoma State offensive line that is experienced. They're 2 deep has played I think all of their 2 deep has played over 1,000 career snaps. It's insane. They're all going to be moving on at some point, but they have it this year. So I think South Dakota State will make Alan Bowman and the receiving group beat them. And Alan Bowman last year was a guy that was getting the ball out of his hands like within 2 seconds every time he snapped the ball. So if Oklahoma State can surpass that, I'm with you. I think that they will make make enough plays in the passing game to overcome it. Kind of just trying to shut down Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, I'm picking
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think that's the right pick. I will say at some point we're going to talk about these games, and I'm going to say that Alan Bowman is going to cost Oklahoma State this game. I'm probably going to say it multiple times this year, but not this one. They'll get by this one.
For sure. Another interesting game, UNLV at Houston, 6 p.m. Central Time on Fox Sports 1. Man, like, I like Willie Fritz a lot, but like Barry Odom and UNLV, this is a tough game, sneaky tough game. Like if you're just looking at the list, like not a big deal, but like UNLV was really good last year, and Houston's in major transition, and Barry Odom has that. Defensively, they've been good last year. Offensively, they were good. I believe they lost their quarterback, but I expect this game to be tough for Houston. And you talk about a team that brought in like 60 plus transfers and trying to gel early in the season. UNLV is on the opposite end. Like they're established and they're going to have guys ready to go. So I'm going to let you pick it first, as I'm always going to do. Then if I need to follow in your footsteps, but I have an idea where I want to do it this one. I just want to hear you say it first.
So I actually picked this game earlier in the offseason, and I'm not going to change it because I went through and did as much research as I could and went about picking this game. And I actually had Houston winning it 38-37 on I think I had a game-winning field goal, just utter craziness for them to find a way to win this game in Willie Fritz's first game as the coach there. And I put that out there, and now I'm looking at the spread, and it's like grown today. It was 1 point. It's up to 2.5 for Houston now. So the money's going towards Houston right now. And so that's really interesting. I'm going to take Houston, but it's by the narrowest of margins. I think UNLV is going to give them everything they can handle.
Yeah, I think Donovan Smith being the quarterback at Houston gives them the leg up in this game. I think he'll make some plays. He's a senior guy that's going to go out and make plays. In which Baylor fans are familiar with Sean Bell. He's this quarterback coach now. And I think they will do enough to win it. And man, I wanted to pick UNLV in this game. Not wanted to. I just thought that was the matchup. Like I thought if there's going to be an upset in any of these games, it could have been the UNLV game. I just think being at home, not that Houston's going to have this crazy home crowd, but I think that Houston figures out how to get it done. I'm surprised, though, it's up to 2.5. I saw it at 1, so it's interesting that it's moving a little bit. I don't know what that's for. Maybe UNLV's quarterback situation isn't that strong. But it's going to be a challenge. Barry Odom's team will play tough defense. So anything else to add on that?
Yeah. No, they definitely will. And we're going to talk about this last game, too. And we've talked about a few games on here. And aside from the Penn State-West Virginia game, I think looking at this list – I think I feel pretty good that one of these teams is going to lose. And I'm having trouble picking which one. That's the problem. But I think when we kind of turn the corner next week, we're going to look at this and be like, oh, yep, we probably should have picked that one. Yeah.
No doubt. So another game that's, it's sneaky tough in a way, but I think is a more favorable matchup than I don't know, or similar matchup I should call UNLV at Houston, but then you have Wyoming at Arizona State. Wyoming beat Texas Tech last year at home. Now they travel to Arizona State and have an opportunity to this. And like Arizona State's one of those programs, like I think there's some confidence that they're going to get it back on track as a program, but Wyoming's just there. They've been a good, solid program, and it's just a dangerous game for a program like Arizona State. So I'll take the lead on this one. I think it's going to be super close. You know, to fill me in on the spread. I haven't looked at the spread. It just naturally looks like it's going to be a close game because of Arizona State's struggles. But I think I'll go with Arizona State just because it's at Arizona State. And so it's 9:30 p.m. Central Time game. That would be 7:30 Mountain Time on Fox Sports 1. So your thoughts, and you've probably done more research on this one than I have from top to bottom, but I know Wyoming's a tough team.
If this game was in Wyoming, I would 100% be taking Wyoming to win this game. Yeah. But since it's at Arizona State, I'm going to preface this by saying I think Arizona State's probably going to be really bad this year. I don't have high expectations for them winning many games, but I think this one is one they can definitely win. I think it's going to be close, though. Right now, Arizona State's a 6-point favorite. The over-under is just at 47.5. So relatively low scoring. I think it's going to be kind of one of those games that's a little bit ugly, but I think at the end of the day, Arizona State will win this game, but I think it will be close.
Yeah. I'm with you. Like I think the quarterback situation there has just been up and down at Arizona State. Sam Leavitt looks like he's going to be the quarterback. But I think this might be one of those games where maybe someone Arizona State pops a little bit and they look a little bit better than we expect them to. But right now, I think it's going to be a close game. I think they're a pretty evenly matched teams for different reasons than some of these other games. That's it for all the games that we wanted to pick. A lot of these FCS games, favorable matchups for a lot of Big 12 teams this week, which you expect early in the season. I mean, but you look at the FCS teams that are playing that we picked: North Dakota State at Colorado, South Dakota State at Oklahoma State. Those are tough matchups for in regards to FCS teams. The last game we're going to pick, we'll always pick this game, is the Baylor game. Tarleton at Baylor, 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN Plus. Baylor's favorite is at 26 and a half, something like that.
26 and a half is where it's at right now. No over under though.
No over under, which I don't blame them. I mean, we don't really know what Baylor's offense is going to be like in Tarleton's without their quarterback. So that's not being set at this stage. No surprise. We're going with Baylor. I think this is more about the spread. If something sneaks up and this thing is a close game, that's not a very, very good sign for Baylor. I think that Baylor will be ready to play this game after what happened last year against Texas State. If you listen to the player interviews today, there's no way they're overlooking this game. Matt Jones says, we remember what happened against Texas State last year. And so I'm going with Baylor. I think that they can cover that spread. It really, to me, it comes more down to the defense and what the defense can do to slow Tarleton potentially without their starting quarterback. I think the offense will do what it needs to do to make plays and get enough points on the board.
Yeah, I got Baylor 48-13. So I absolutely think they're covering this spread. And I think they should. That's what good teams do against not great teams. And after watching Tarleton State versus McNeese State, I'm pretty confident that Tarleton State is at least average, at least just an average team. I don't think they're the same team that they necessarily were a year ago. I don't think they're winning 10 games this season. They're just okay. And I expect Baylor to take care of business against a just okay FCS team. So, yeah, I got the Bears 48-13.
Yeah, they will definitely have tougher games, including next week against Utah. Massive benchmark test for Baylor with Cam Rising coming back. So that's it for the game picks this week. We're going to move straight into the mailbag. So earlier today, we posted a thread on Sick'em 365. Typically, this will go on social media, but if you want to drop us a question about Baylor athletics, obviously right now everything's trending towards football, but if you want to drop us a question about Baylor athletics on our social media accounts, go to the premium forum on sick'em365.com, drop us a question there. We're not going to be able to get to all of them. The reality is, we're 22 minutes in now. We usually go less than 30, so we're going to have to get through these pretty quick, and hopefully at times we'll be able to do more than these. So I'm going to get started. The first one, I think this kind of goes into what I just led out of with on the Utah comment with Cam Rising, but Bumbo 1. Why do I have this feeling that we're going to beat Utah and have a much better season than people expect? Grayson, go with it first, and then I'll give my thoughts.
I think this is one of the trickier games to pick because I kind of am in line with you that there's this weird feeling that Baylor's going to beat Utah, and just this weird kind of gut feeling about that happening. But I also have to say, I felt that way last year going into the Utah game as well. Even after losing to Texas State, I felt like for some reason that Baylor was going to win that game, and they almost did. So I understand it. I'm not listening to it this year. This is on the road in Salt Lake City. This is a much different challenge than playing them at home. And both teams last year were playing with backup quarterbacks. So it's kind of a wash there. And so I really do. I understand where you're coming from, but I would not take Baylor in that game. But I also do think that there are a lot of people's expectations that are very low. And I do believe that Baylor is going to exceed most people's expectations for this season, aside from the ones that think they're going to win, 8 or 9 games. I don't think they're getting to that point, but I do think the people that have them at, 4 wins or 3 wins, I do think they're going to exceed that.
Yeah. I'm interesting comment from Kyle Whittingham was that they're going to be really cautious with him with Cam Rising in the true run game. We'll see what that actually means as they get deeper into the season. I think that Cam Rising's, we've seen him play enough that he's going to, natural instincts are going to take over, and maybe not, he's not going to have design calls, but he's going to run. And that's what his strength is, and that's what Utah needs. But I will say, if he gets into this game and he just doesn't move very well, maybe Baylor has the opportunity. So maybe that's where the feeling goes. It's like, we don't know what Cam Rising is going to be. We don't know what he's going to be. His strengths have always been his legs. He doesn't take a ton of deep shots. He will, but he's going to utilize his tight ends, utilize his quick slot receivers to make some plays in the middle of the field. And then they're going to rely on the running game. And so if his legs aren't working the way that they used to, which is entirely possible, then Baylor has a better chance in this game. And that's not a knock on Utah. That's just reality. You eliminate his legs and it becomes a little bit easier path.
That's what happened last year. I mean, once Utah put in the dual threat quarterback, Baylor could not deal with it at all. And so I could see that. I think it was gamesmanship by Kyle Whittingham. I think we're going to look up and Cam Rising's going to have double-digit carries against Baylor.
Yeah, and it could be. I'm interested too, because that's not a conference game, how they treat it. But anyways, good question. We got to get through these, and we'll see how long we go. Bears 224. From what you have seen, heard, can you finish this sentence? The 2024 Baylor football team identity is going to be. Man, yeah. I'll go. I'm going to go first on this.
You want to go first? Okay.
Yeah. Let me go. I think it's going to be fast, and it's going to be a lot more hectic than a year ago in terms of speed on both sides of the ball. I don't know what that results in at the end of the day, but when I talk about speed, I'm talking about player personnel speed and then tempo speed, and you playing physical on the defensive side of the ball. If they can play with some recklessness, that's going to be a huge step up from a year ago. You don't want to play crazy, but I think this team, if we have heard what Dave Aranda has said all offseason, is that he doesn't want this team to be passive. He wants them to go and play. He wants them to have the edge. I think it's going to result in speed on both sides of the ball.
I think going in line with that, I think compared to Dave Aranda's previous teams, I think this team's going to be their identity is going to be swagger. I think they have a lot more swagger than they've ever had with Dave Aranda. Even the 2021 team. I mean, they had some of it, but it was nothing comparable to what Baylor had before. I think this team's going to get closer to that because of some of the guys they brought in, the talent that they brought in. But I will say this has been a problem, I think, for Baylor the last few years, is they haven't had an identity. And so I think they definitely need to get back to that.
Yeah, I think their identity was the wide zone offense and an identity that wasn't necessarily their identity. I think that was what was successful, and that's what they went with. Defensively, they were, had a lot of, I would say, leadership. But I think this team you look up and down, the transfers they brought them in for a reason, but a lot of them kind of have that swagger. And I think that's great. I think that's what they needed, and they went and found that. I think that was intentional on recruiting. And I'm with you. I think there's going to be a kind of a recklessness with this team. You just hope that you can hone it in and actually result in something successful on the field. Moving on real quick, we're at question number 3, CJ2K Baylor. What 3 realistic things happening would give you the belief that this team can win 7+ games? So, is it what comes together to make this team win 7 games, for lack of a better phrase?
Okay. I think that the first one is DeQuan Finn's going to have to be a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12. I think for them to win 7+ games, I think he's going to have to be that good if they're going to get to that point. The offensive line has to be nationally average. So they need to be somewhere in that top 60, top 55 type range. And then third, Dave Aranda's defense has to become more opportunistic this year. They got to create turnovers. They got to be able to win on the margins defensively. So I think those are probably the 3 things that are realistic. And I think that's what it would take for them to get to 8 wins this year.
Yeah, I like it. I'm not going to go through a full list of 3, but I'll throw in Jake Spavital's play calling. I think that in so many situations in the last 2 years, play calling has let the team down offensively. I think Jake Spavital brings kind of a pace to calling his offense and understanding what he wants to call, that's going to be beneficial if this team is capable and goes on to win 7+ games. I think there's going to be those moments where you're like, what's going to happen? And the perfect play call comes out at the perfect time. And I think that's going to happen more often than not if this team goes on to win 7 games. So that great question. I mean, I think we're all looking for that. We're all trying to figure out how can this Baylor team meet its ceiling and win a lot of games again, go back to the postseason, not only just go to the postseason, but win games. And things are going to have to come together for that to happen. So moving through these, Ski 8103, will the shift from the wide zone spread impact the way Coach Dave Aranda looks at 4th downs?
See, I think that's going to be – I'm going to need to see it, honestly, to believe it. I know that last year they went for it a lot. I think some of that was Dave Aranda. A lot of that was also Jeff Grimes. I think they just really bought into that. So I am curious if this year, if they lean into that again or if they're a little more conservative. I think it's going to be less, but I still think they're going to go for it a pretty good amount.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the confidence in the defense, even more so than the offensive line. I mean, the offensive unit being able to convert these things. And I think the way that they will approach 4th downs, hey, if we ran a 3rd and 9 play, we got 8 yards, and we feel like we can get there with tempo, let's go take it. Let's go get that first. Let's just steal a 1st down with tempo. I think that's going to be the difference in the wide zone scheme and lining up and smashing heads and trying to get it in a touch. Like, how many times did they miss those last year where they tried to line up and just get stuffed in the backfield? That's not what Jake Spavital is going to do. And I think if Dave Aranda gives him the green light, if it's 4th and 2 and they can get to the line of scrimmage in tempo, I think they're going to go for it. I mean, unless they're down deep in their own territory, I don't think that DNA changes much. I think it's how they get to executing that play, the 4th down play. And obviously, depending on the time of the game, you might want to punt if you're up, 10 points with 3 minutes to go. You might want to just kick it and get out of there. But that's reality for any other team. So any thoughts on additional thoughts on the 4th downs?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I think we both believe they're going to go for it. I do think it'll be a little bit less than it was a year ago. I mean, they were going for it in outrageous circumstances last year, and some of the play calls were just completely baffling. But yeah, I think they'll still have that in their identity, I do think.
Yeah. So it's been a staple for Dave Aranda really since that 21 season. So I'm anxious to see if that changes. Last question that we're going to get to tonight, or this morning, excuse me. Go Bears, go. Man, Grace, I'm handing this one off to you. Before I've even read it, I'm giving it to you. But give us a quick take on the soccer game versus Texas A&M.
So first of all, really excited about this. Our very own Jack McKenzie has just been dialing it in on our website about Baylor soccer, covering it a ton. And so obviously when I saw this question, I knew a big game was coming up. I had to ask Jack. And so I told Jack, I'm just going to read exactly what you put because I think that's going to give Go Bears Go the best take possible. So Jack said, Baylor versus A&M is a huge game for the Bears. This is a fringe top 25 team coming to town, the last big non-conference game at home in Waco. Winning will be very important for the Bears' NCAA tournament hopes. Soccer's on a 3-game winning streak, and it's scarf night, free scarf giveaway. So it should be an exciting Friday night game to go, especially if you're coming down early for the football season opener. So that's Jack's take on it. I will say Jack told me a lot of things before the season about this team and how much production they have coming back and how just excited they are and how the culture has definitely changed in that soccer program. And I think there's a chance that you see it in this A&M game. It would be a huge win, I think, for the whole program.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for that program to get, in a lot of ways, a signature win. And obviously, it's a rivalry game. I mean, these girls don't get to play Texas A&M all the time, but they understand it's just right down the road. And it's for fans. I guarantee our website, Sikkim365, will be tuned in as much as possible for this game. Soccer is getting bigger and bigger. And our fans, when these rivalries take place and these games happen, Sikkim365 members are all over it. That's for any sport. So interested to see how that one goes. But, man, this is it. College football is here. We're picking games. They start tomorrow night, Thursday night. And but that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. We will have another episode. We have some coaches and players that we'll interview later this week for y'all and visit with Dallas Baker and visit with Josh Cameron, junior receiver. And we're really excited to do that. That's just going to add another component to our entire lineup for Inside Baylor Sports. So, all right, Baylor family, thank you so much for listening. For Grayson Grudenhafer, I'm Colt Barber. Have a great Wednesday and Sick 'em Bears.